Ontario Premier Doug Ford is facing new questions over the now cancelled Greenbelt plan. Thousands of documents surfaced this week that suggest Ford's office had more involvement in the approval of certain properties for development than they've been saying. We also learned that 18 ministerial zoning orders were given to guests who attended Ford's daughter's wedding. Here's how the Premier responded today.
I had nothing to do with the changes in the Greenbelt, number one. Number two, the Auditor General cleared my office, and the Integrity Commissioner cleared me in my office. MZOs is a great tool that have created, folks. It's a tool that the province has been using for decades. We're going to continue accelerating the permit process. We need to build homes for people. That's our key focus.
All right, the CBC's Mike Crawley was at that news conference, and he joins us now from Queen's Park. Okay, Mike, let's start with what Ford was addressing there. He said MZOs, ministerial zoning orders. What did we learn about some of the guests at Ford's family wedding in these documents?
Okay, so David, ministerial zoning order, MZO, is basically a fast track that the province can do on local zoning. So it basically, says instantly, boom, you can change what you can build on that particular property. And by doing that, can potentially boost the value of that land pretty significantly. So the province has handed out a bunch of these MZOs, a whole bunch of them, to 3 developers and a lobbyist who were guests at Doug Ford's daughter's wedding reception in August of 2022. It's a disproportionate amount, pushing like 15% of all of the MZOs that the government has handed out. And a lot of questions about, why it would be that so many of the folks who were wedding guests benefited from this.
There's a lot that keeps coming out on this, and there was this trove of documents released last night containing some new revelations, Mike. So walk us through that.
Right, so the documents are related to a couple of things that the government did that was also related to approving development on land. One being the Greenbelt, which you've talked about a lot on the show. The other being some changes basically that were forced on cities around Ontario, like Ottawa, Hamilton, the regions of Peel and York near Toronto, that changed, again, what developers could build on certain parcels of land. And so we're talking 7,000 pages of documents related to this. And there were in these documents emails coming from ministers, from staff within the government, political staff, that seemed to indicate that the Premier's office was more involved in what went on than we've been led to believe, okay? So emails saying things like the PO, which is shorthand in Ontario for the Premier's office, wants this to happen, referring to specific parcels of land getting green-lighted for development. We also learned that Ford actually had a meeting with a developer face-to-face, a developer from the Hamilton area, about specifically removing this guy's land from the Greenbelt. And so, these things were the kinds of questions that we wanted to ask Doug Ford about. He's still sticking, though, to insisting that he didn't know about this. He wasn't involved in selecting the particular properties. He didn't direct people in his office to, get these particular properties greenlit for development.
So just sticking with that line, no explanation of the documents. It wasn't me. I didn't have any role in this.
Yeah, and saying that the response also that we got from his spokesperson is that anybody who was in the Premier's office who was involved in this stuff is no longer working for the government. So there is an acknowledgement that the Premier's office was in some ways involved in some of these land use questions or decisions that were made, but we're told by the Premier's office that those folks are no longer employed.
Okay, that's an interesting little clarification there. Okay, so Mike, look, who knows, but what happens now with the Greenbelt story in Ontario? What's next?
Really the big thing, David, that everybody's waiting for is what goes on with the RCMP investigation. Right. Because, look, Doug Ford has fairly effectively tried to put a lid on what went on with the Greenbelt by reversing course, by saying, okay, we're not approving these lands for housing development. But the fact is the Mounties are looking into this. It's a special unit of the RCMP that focuses on political cases involving potential corruption or breach of trust. And if any officials in the Premier's office, whether or not they're still employed in the Premier's office, if any of the officials that were working for Doug Ford get charged coming out of that investigation, that takes this story to a whole other level. And then if you end up with a trial and that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing that could cost Doug Ford down the road. Because now, look, we're 2.5 years plus away from an election. Right. People are going to have forgotten about the Greenbelt by that time. But if there's a trial or anything like that, then all bets are off.
All right, Mike, thank you so much. That's the CBC's Mike Crawley at Queen's Park.